everybody. Welcome to my show. My name is Donna Gorton, and you are now watching the Willows Bend. And so, I'll make it this stuff out of the way first. I am viewable on YouTube, on Soma Fusion Network, on the channel on YouTube. There is Facebook, Soma Fusion on Facebook. There's somafusion.com on the web. We're just everywhere and anywhere you'd like to listen or watch. So I'm going to type a quick hi into my chat for everybody. And tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about Thunderbirds. That's what the topic everybody voted on last week. So let me just acknowledge everybody. So I watched my chat in my Facebook group, The Willows Bend, and just wrote H, everyone. Hi. Try that one again. Hi, everyone. There we go. So I keep an eye on my chat in there, and because whether I go to YouTube or here, they follow me to either place. But for most, it's easier just to go into my Facebook group and watch me there. So as always, no nonsense is allowed, yada, yada. If you are interested in calling in on the topic, you're certainly welcome to call in. The phone number is area code 929-436-2866, and you enter meeting ID number 522-657-2748 when prompted. So there we go, everybody. Hi, everybody in the Facebook group. Hope you all are well. So as always, I always start with, because everybody likes me too, doing a circle of protection for the group. Just allow any negativity from entering the group. Trolls are not welcome on either end of things, whether in Facebook or here. No tolerance for any rudeness, disrespect. If that's all you're going to bring, well, just keep scrolling, because, yeah, we don't put up that here. But my shoe fits really well on the backside of anyone who'd like to try. And there is a certain amount of pleasure in booting a troll when they come in, but just don't bother. It makes no sense. All right, so with the sage, I cast a circle of protection for all who are watching in or listening out either on radio, watching anywhere they're watching it, and that may they be protected from any negativity or impact of any ill will from anyone or anything. And let's see, may that protection follow them outside of the show as well, and anyone who watches this in a replay. And I also will do my stones as well. So with that circle, it is cast, so I will it, so mote it be. So with the sage, I cleanse my stones of all energies except for their own, with the hopes that will work with mine. My dog, after this morning, could use some sage because he just was being a massive pain in the butt. Hi, Tab. How are you, lady? Welcome, everybody. I can't reach the cat behind me, so hopefully the smoke will just fade back there to her. So I will sage myself of all energies except for my own and Bonnie's, that nothing negative or of ill will may impact me whatsoever. So I will it, so mote it be. Rock on. All right, that's done. You guys are all very, very welcome. And again, now you'll be safe and protected. I have not heard of anything horrible and tragic happening to anyone who is in my Facebook group any time recently since I've been doing it. So yes, I would say it's pretty effective. I'm pretty good at protections stuff. So let's move my rocks over here. Make sure that it's not else, so I don't mark myself up on it. Excuse me. So tonight we're going to be talking about Thunderbirds. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I got a little funny to tell you too before we get started. So many of you know who know me in my Facebook group know that I have long-running shoulder pain issues from car accident injuries from like 22 years ago. And last night it was pretty bad. So I was trying to find something to help me relax in like meditative music. And I had asked Alexa, I want to say it because I have a Kindle and it will start the program and I don't want that interrupting the show. So I asked that for soft, comforting, meditative music. And it actually brought up my theme song, which I thought was hilarious. So it played my theme song, and I said, no, not that, because I mean, while it's a nice song, I don't really get relaxed by it. And so I asked for the next one in line to come up, and there's several, like, they're numbered. Mine, I think, is number 6 or something like that in the composition of them, and then it brought up like number 3 or something like that, which is a piano thing. But it just was funny that it brought up my theme song first. That was in there. Jake, honey, leave your blanket alone. Okay, all gone. You can get back up. It's okay. So anyhow, hopefully everyone out there is doing well and had a good weekend and a good Easter if you celebrate it. And so let's dive into Thunderbirds. So what is a Thunderbird? Now, this runs across many different cultures, has, I mean, ancient history behind the mythos of Thunderbirds and legends, and I mean, mainly predominantly in North and South America, but it is not limited to there by any means. So a Thunderbird in North American indigenous population, i.e. what people call Indians, the preferable term is indigenous people, mythology, a Thunderbird is a powerful spirit in the form of a bird. And it's supposed to be like Gimondo huge, right? Jake, what are you trying to do? Your blanket is not up for debate, okay? He got into trouble. For those who are listening, I have a Dalmatian. He's elderly, and he got his toe stuck in a thread of his blanket last night. He panics over stuff like that, and he kept like turning in circles trying to get out from under it, and it got wound tightly around like the top of his toenail. And he doesn't like to sit still for me to help him when he's in that situation. So I don't want him to get caught again. Jake, come on, baby. Puppy. Okay, we don't need a repeat of last night because that was bad. And I had to try to identify what foot it was on that he was caught on. And, of course, my scissors are across the room from me, and I didn't want to let him go. I finally had to force him into a laying down position to get him to hold still. Hey, Stacy and Karen and Mary, welcome everybody. So by its work, the Earth was, through the work of a Thunderbird, the Earth was watered and vegetation grew from the Thunderbird's busyness. Lightning was believed to flash from its beak, and the beating of its wings were thought to represent the rolling of thunder, and oftentimes it was portrayed with an extra head on its abdomen within certain cultures, and that's according to Encyclopedia Britannica. Now, I can say that in all my research, I did not come across any imagery that portrayed it with an extra abdomen on its head, so I'm not sure what culture that came from, and it wasn't in anything I came across. And I did explore several different viewpoints and sightings and stories and artwork and so forth, and did not see a single one that had an abdomen in the center, or an extra head in the center of its abdomen. But that's according to the Encyclopedia Britannica. Now, they were also thought to be often accompanied by falcons or eagles, and let's see, evidence of similar figures to that of the North American Thunderbirds is also found in places like Africa, Asia, and Europe, which interestingly, they associate actually with a woodpecker. Maybe by the shape of its head, perhaps, is the only way I could really see that one playing out, but otherwise, the woodpeckers are relatively small birds. They're noisy, their sound carries, but they can be destructive over time. Go ahead, baby, I'm all clear. Go ahead, puppy pup. Now, I did draw a representation of one I'll show in a minute, and those who follow me know I am no artist, but it's pretty close. The variations, of course, it's going to vary depending on the culture that it's shown in, and it can also be, thrown into everything, like among indigenous people in their clothing, their bags, totem poles, they're also often portrayed in as well. But the basic design I have is what one would find most often, or a variation of that. And hey, Aaron, what I posted in the group for the show reminder is also a very common representation of a thunderbird by ancient Americans artwork. Jake, come on up. Nope, come on up. Go ahead. I'm doing my show. Come on up. So thunderbirds play an especially frequently portrayed figure into songs, history, artwork, oral history of many Pacific and Northwestern cultures, and also found in various forms of some people of the American Southwest, the East Coast tribes, the Great Lakes, and the Great Plains of America. So it's really kind of across the board in different places that the thunderbird has a really focused importance within the tribal belief system, and what it does within each tribal system can vary slightly, but that is what it was, like what I described about, like the rolling thunder being the beating of its wings sign. That is one of the more common views of how different indigenous tribes, they view thunderbirds as being protectors, and also having a hand in the functioning of the earth. So I'm going to cover like what some different tribes view it as, how they how it's portrayed within those people's culture, what some of the artwork might look like, and then we're also going to end up going into like eyewitness accounts and things, people who claim to have encountered one, and what they're thought to be by science's view and/or cryptozoologists. Now, cryptozoology is a study of beings that are thought to exist, but there's no hardcore scientific evidence that they do. There's not like any fossil record in support of them being in existence, like no skeletal remains are found or otherwise. However, by the sheer number of reports of them and so forth and other evidence found, it is thought that they probably do exist. Thank you guys for sharing. I appreciate that. So it is classified also as a cryptid, which is what those different beings are called by cryptozoologists, that probably exist, but they don't have any hardcore evidence by standards which science would accept. Yes, that's what we've been talking about, Aaron. He says thunderbirds are a big topic in Native American culture. Correct. So in Algonquian mythology, and now the Algonquin tribes are the northeastern regions of North America and eastern Canada, and includes the Iroquois people, the Ojibwe of Minnesota, and so forth. Now, the thunderbird for them controls the upper world, while the underworld's controlled by underwater panther, which is interesting, or a great horned serpent. Now, many cultures have a different myth regarding, water monsters, and great serpents or water dragons. Well, this is kind of their version of that with the great horned serpent. I've not ever heard of underwater panther before. Yes, they are considered a cryptid, Sandy, surprisingly. So I kind of hand drew, hey Alice, the shape of what the Ojibwe, this was how they portray the thunderbird in a lot of their artwork. I fudged one side of it a little bit, but bear with it. You get the gist of the shape of it. So it's kind of shaped like that, where it has a head similar to that, and it's called like an X shape and it does actually crisscross in the middle for how it is shown in many different tribes and or cultures. Does have that. And like I said, what I showed in a group photo, which I didn't dare try to draw that. I am no artist by any means. It is the most common, I guess, icon you might see as how they're portrayed. So it's in the group if you're interested in seeing that. I put it in. I always do a show reminder the day of, and I include a photo regarding the topic of the show with my the show's picture. So it's in there. So it's in the group. So according to the Ojibwe version of the myth, they were created to fight the underwater spirits and to punish humans who broke moral rules, which I find interesting too. Now, I don't know if they were thought to be sacrificed to them or how they would punish them. I didn't come across that in the research, but thunderbirds lived in the sacred four directions and came with other birds during the springtime. And in the fall, they would migrate south after ending the underwater spirits' most dangerous season. So they would see it through for their most dangerous season, which would be summer. And then I guess when the underwater spirits would be at their strongest. And interestingly, what is considered their strongest season would be the most times when waterways would be used by people the most for bathing, for drinking, for swimming, all of those things. So it'd be kind of seen as being in protection of them, I guess, during that time frame when the waterways would be most active in whatever form, ocean, lakes, creeks, rivers, whatever. It didn't say just oceans, so it protects it during that. So it sees it through to the end of their destructive season, and then they migrate south. Now, in the Menominee, I think I'm saying it correctly, Menominee of the northern Wisconsin tribe. They tell of a great mountain that floats in the western sky that the thunderbirds dwell on. They control the hail and the rain. And thunderbirds are the enemies of the great horned snakes, again, much like the Ojibwe are, and have stopped them from overrunning the earth and devouring humanity. Well, thank you to them for that job, right? They're also messengers of the sun, which I find interesting too. So thunderbirds are messengers of the sun to them. Now with icons of the thunderbird. Hi, Annette. Hopefully you're doing okay today, love. Amongst the Algonquin tribes, the thunderbird has, like I said, that X shape to its body, and with the wings alongside of its body, and the head is facing forward, even though it's drawn like it's looking sideways, which would be considered in profile. They consider it facing forward rather than in profile. And there was also a headless shaped thunderbird found on an Ojibwe Midowewin, I'm butchering this word, Midwawin, there we go, so sorry, which is like a medicine disc dating to 1250 to 1400 of the current era, CE, and forgive any mispronunciations. Some words I do have written out in phonetic version to make sure I try to get it right, and sometimes I don't see that until after I read it and butcher it. You're funny, Aaron. He doesn't want to end up, thank you also for that he doesn't want to end up some creature's dinner. So some scientists think that the idea of a thunderbird came from finding fossils of a pterosaur or a giant raptor-like bird, which was from back in the dinosaur days. Now, this is full of holes as a story or an explanation from science to me, as finding a skeletal fossil and realizing that that's what it went to, or even to be able to re-envision it alive in like cave art and so forth. Like, unless, seeing the skeleton of any being, it's hard to picture what it would look like in life. And yet they're saying that's where the science thinks that they got the idea of the Thunderbird from is skeletal remains of the pterosaur, which is kind of related to in the same family as the pterodactyls. We all know the pterodactyls, right? Well, the pterosaurs are similar birds or dinosaurs from that time, but they're thought to have died out back with the dinosaurs. Now, according to science, humans started populating the earth after dinosaurs were killed off, but there's other theories out there regarding that part of it. But again, you know, the idea that they're going to come up with a giant mythos that gets a legend and passed down through oral history and artwork based on finding a fossil of a skeletal remains in the ground and put that into a giant visual and give it all these superpowers, that's sketchy to me, but that's what science says. So modern day stories of Thunderbirds. Now I have included a lot of eyewitness accounts of what, because people don't know what they are kind of being classified as possibly being Thunderbirds. Now, scientists and other zoological people are kind of quick to jump to say, well, it's this kind of bird, probably, or that kind of bird. It sounds a bit, but I mean, we'll get to it. But there's one footage. I don't know how many of you are familiar with. On the topic of Sasquatch, back in the 1970s, there is a holy grail of film footage that was recorded by the Pattersons. It was called the Patterson footage, and it's thought to be the most authentic footage filmed of a Sasquatch at that time or since then, even, that shows them, and that has not been able to be invalidated as like the film was tampered with in any way. Well, there is something similar to that regarding the Thunderbirds that got filmed, and it's thought to be the twin of that regarding Thunderbirds instead. Now, I watched it, but what science writes it off as versus what I am familiar with that bird that they think it is, and it didn't look like that through most of the footage to me. So we'll get to that in a few minutes, but I'm going to go through the eyewitness reports, and some of them are kind of startling, you know, like to think that of what they say it is, being capable of doing what it is described as doing in some of the cases. Now, some of them are merely sightings in the sky. Others are having not a direct interaction per se. Well, you will get to that, but some of it, you know, you're kind of like, how could that bird do that? It doesn't make sense. So, okay, is my volume up at all? My old tablet, I'm thinking it might be. Hang on, guys. That's off. I don't know. Maybe I'm hearing a slight echo or something from somewhere, but yeah, it's hard to say, you know, which Sasquatch it was, Aaron, but it just is thought to be the most authentic Sasquatch footage out there. I mean, a mad ton has been shot to a mad ton of people, but the Patterson footage is supposed to be the most accurate, least chances of it was being tampered with, and the authentic of it. So there is footage of that regarding Thunderbirds that is kind of likened to the Patterson footage. So one of the biggest, most talked about interactions with Thunderbirds in our recent history, I knew that would kick in, and Annette lost her beloved cat yesterday, so love and hugs out to her. And I'll discuss it after the show. Hopefully I'm not going to forget by then, but I will discuss. I have a plan that I'm going to put in place in the group, so hopefully we'll talk about that by the end of the show. But yeah, so love and hugs to Annette. She'll be okay. She'll get through it, but we're going to be here for her. So so the most modern day story that gets most frequent attention regarding the interaction with Thunderbirds. So on July 25th, 1977, Marlon Lowe, or Lau, I'm not sure how they pronounce it, Lowe, it's going to, you know, however they pronounce it. I didn't hear a pronunciation of how they say it, but he's age 10, was outside with his family home near Kickapoo Creek. Don't drink that water, right? In Lawndale, Illinois. Now, 2 birds flew overhead, and one suddenly swooped down to grab the boy, carrying him a few feet and then dropping him. Now, this incident occurred in front of 7 witnesses, all of whom described the same thing, even when interviewed separately. They described 2 huge coal-black birds with long ringed white, like a white ring around their necks, long curled beaks, and a giant wingspan of at least 10 feet. All reported that it looked like a condor, although Marlon's mother said that she spent many hours afterward in the library trying to identify what she had seen without any success. Hi, Annette. She rejected the local sheriff's ideas of what it could be. Now, there is a bird that is common in northeastern, well, I don't know, it's full territory, but I would say the upper half of the United States probably, called a turkey vulture. Now, they're very common birds here in upstate New York where I live, and I'm, pretty rural up here. So I have seen these guys up close. I've seen them on the ground. I've seen them in flight. I've seen them taken off. A harpy, yeah, maybe, but although those have like a woman's body, Tanya, like I don't know if I think we did a show on them once upon a time. Yeah, gentle hugs, lady. Now, turkey vultures are very large birds. They're in the turkey family, I guess, but they do have the head that looks kind of a cross between a vulture and a turkey. If one has ever seen like a wild turkey's head, and vultures are big and stinky and regurgitate. Yes, they do. And so they have, in Pennsylvania too. Actually, I got many stories from Pennsylvania, Sandy. Now, they do have a huge wingspan. I would not go as far as saying they have a long neck, as described in this incident, nor do they have a white ring around their neck either. They are black in color, and they have a very wide wingspan. They are a large bird. I see them, they ride a lot of the air currents and do a lot of soaring around and stuff, kind of similar to how a hawk would fly. But they are big birds. But they don't look exactly as they're described in here as the sheriff. Funny, Aaron. Have you seen them before, Aaron? How they're described to be as being a turkey vulture. I'm not so sure that is what it was. There just aren't any, quote, there aren't just any birds around here that could lift him up like that, she said, the mom. And, again, a 10-year-old boy, an average 10-year-old kid has raised what? Probably closer to, nowadays compared to then, but, kids are bigger today than they were back then in the 70s. But, an average 10-year-old, you're probably looking at anything between 60 and 75, 80 pounds, give or take. And that's a lot, even for a large bird like a turkey vulture to be able to lift up off the ground. The wingspan of a turkey vulture can be about 10 feet long or wide. And they have a very distinct, their wingtips do kind of look like a condor's, in that you can see individual feathers, spacings on them in the sky, like if you're looking up at them. But seeing vultures in North Virginia too, I don't know if that's what you're talking about. These are they're called turkey vultures, so they're slightly different. They probably are in the vulture family, Mary, but they are their face and head is much more like a wild turkey. You know what, Aaron? You probably are ugly to them. So, wild turkeys aren't beautiful only to each other, probably, but they do have a face like a wild turkey would have. So, but I love you. Had to throw that one out there. He's saying how they're really, really ugly and have a face only a mother could love. Okay, so interestingly, several of the other incidences followed after Lawndale in as far as where they happen. Sightings happened in late July and in early August. August 11 in Southwest Illinois, and like there was one more incident after that one, and then they publicly ceased. Now, what that means, publicly ceased, means that through being ridiculed and publicly ridiculed, and told everybody, telling them that you're ridiculous, you're wrong, and it's not what you saw, and all that stuff. Yeah, you're gonna like stop talking about this stuff publicly because you're gonna be embarrassed, and you're not gonna want to not be believed, of course. So you're going to stop publicly discussing it. And even if other things were seen, others might choose to not publicly talk about them either because of how they might get looked at or thought as crazy or whatever, or equally ridiculous. They're found in Iowa and Missouri too, are they? Huh. That's why I said kind of probably the upper part of the country that they would be seen in. I've never heard of turkey vultures down south anyway. So speculation on the bird included an Andean condor, which matched descriptions of a black bird with a ringed white neck and a 10-foot wingspan. But would that have been in Illinois? Andean condor, probably not likely. Yeah, live in Maryland. They're everywhere here, especially on the highway. Don't watch them eat if you had lunch that day. Well, yes, they're scavenger birds. I mean, they do hunt their own as well, but they are scavengers. You have turkey buzzards down here too. Yeah, same. It's literally the same thing. So maybe they do go further south, but I think they're mainly, in the middle upwards part of the country of North America. Now, it can be noted, however, that an Andean condor's claws aren't strong enough to lift a 10-year-old boy off the ground, so that excludes them from being what these people saw. And again, the mother spent days in the library trying to look up all kinds of different large birds and could never find one that exactly fit what she saw that day. So could it be some mutated bird form? Maybe. I mean, again, there's no evidence, no physical evidence found to demonstrate exactly what they are, but we know what they're not. Soon, public ridicule was setting in, and witnesses just stopped talking openly about their experiences. Now, cryptozoologists have removed all the mythological and spiritual info, as well as any supernatural powers ascribed to the thunderbird, and they label it as being a cryptid, which is a biological organism, whether extinct or new, thought to exist, but remains unconfirmed by the scientific community. Is what qualifies something as a cryptid, is what I just read. Oh, okay, well, yes, welcome home to your mom, Nancy. So in this case, cryptozoologists think that it is a predatory bird, larger and perhaps stronger than known species indigenous to both North and South American continents. Now, again, they take out everything that is mythological based from the cryptozoologists do. So they are bringing an aspect of science to this in how they're viewing it. They're taking away any supernatural power it might have in all the myths and legends about it. They're taking away, anything that is very specific to different origins of a story and what the ancient origins are. So, and spiritual belief systems to it and so forth. And they are strictly looking at it as it's an organism, whether it's been extinct or thought to be extinct, or it's something new that has come into being and it just hasn't been confirmed scientifically yet. But they're not saying it can't exist. So, Modern sightings liken their morphology, meaning their makeup, to an eagle, a hawk, or a condor, although a minority of reports claim them to have more of a reptilian appearance, suggesting some sort of a bat or a pterosaur, which again is like what the pterodactyls belong to. In that family, they are related to that and have that same view as, as kids, we all know what pterodactyls look like, with having like the bat-like wings and having the long pointed beaks with teeth in them and having the big claws and a tail and stuff. So that's what that is. Now, according to Mark A. Hall, who is one of the foremost investigators of the Thunderbird story, he gives the following description of the avian cryptid drawn from numerous sightings. And I quote, "The bird is distinguished by its size and lifting capabilities, exceeding those of any known bird living today anywhere in the world. Wingspan estimates are necessarily all guesswork, but observers sometimes have had the benefits of measurable objects for comparison, or the benefit of time to observe a resting bird. The bird at rest or on the ground appears to be 4 to 8 feet tall, typically has the coloring of being overall dark," end quote. Now, I do have to agree with that part of it, in that perspective is going to play a key whenever you're guesstimating the size of an object. When you see it up in the sky, you have nothing next to it to compare to it for size. So it's going to be best guess unless you're up close to it or can see it next to, say, a tree or something that is known to you of how big it would be. And so it may look absolutely huge, but in reality, it may not be quite as big as you think it is, because of what are you comparing it to? So it's best guess. So as far as the wingspan measurements people give on these things, yeah, it's going to be guesswork. If it's in the sky and flying, you're not going to really have something to, compare it to. Now, the largest wingspans of known birds are with the wandering albatross, and it has a wingspan of 12 feet, which is huge. The Andean condor and California condor range 10 to 10.5 feet wingspans, which again is huge. But even these birds would not have the capability of lifting a 10-year-old off the ground even a few feet. They're not going to prey on things that big. And those types of birds are primarily scavengers in nature. They look for things that are already dead to eat off of, and because it's easier for them. So work always gets in your way for my show, Karen. I know it's a rough time for your time zone to be on, but there's no good time, It's all good. Excuse me. But reports of the Thunderbird, including lifting deer and humans off the ground, meaning that within the myths of Thunderbirds and the legends of them, they're capable of lifting deer and humans off the ground. Hi, Christopher. Things look bigger from far away, but up close they're not that big. Correct. That's the perspective thing. So they too look at the myths and legends, some history at about the beginning of the show, both in the Micmac and the Passamaquoddy nations of the northeastern Atlantic coast. They tell stories of a type of thunderbird whose wings produce powerful winds strong enough to agitate the sea. The Passamaquoddy tribe even tell a legend of a village of people who are shapeshifters who live far to the north of the mystical mountains, which, quote, drew apart back and forth and then closed very quickly. I think meaning the mountains do, that squashing those who attempted passage but who weren't quick enough to like get through them. So I think these mystical mountains like can close on somebody if you're not quick enough getting through the past them. But that these village of shape-shifting people allegedly live up in that way, and that it's even attributed that the Thunderbirds are part of them, or they are the Thunderbirds. I'm done now. 10 minutes of being yelled at, then 10 minutes of her apologizing for being a bitch. I love people. Right? Customer service at its best, lady. Shared a picture of a conservation officer sitting in an eagle's nest today for size reference. Cool, Tanya. Yeah, like they're big. They are big. And that actually plays into another story of a sighting attributed to being a Thunderbird later on. Well, they called it an eagle, yet it is put in with the Thunderbird sightings due to the size and power of it. And so, like, we'll get to that in a little bit here. So, now Mesopotamia also have their own legends of being called Anzu, or a lesser divinity, with the body of a giant bird and the head of a lion, who's so large that its wings cause storms and whirlwinds. Now, jumping forward again in time for more modern reports, written in stone. Okay, Tanya. Maybe is first well-known case of recent time from the North American Southwest in the late 1800s. Eagles are big. We have a lot of eagle rehab centers here in Virginia, including Busch Gardens. Yeah, they've made a comeback here in New York as well, where you can find them nesting alongside of the river in different places. So I've gotten to see bald eagles several times here in recent years. They've kind of come off our endangered list here. They're still protected, of course, but they're not endangered anymore. And they're amazing to see. But they're more akin to catch, small animals like rabbits or, small foxes maybe, and, fish, things like that. They're not likely to pick up a 10-year-old child. So, from the 1800s in the American Southwest, and the story goes that a pair of cowboys in Arizona shot and killed a large avian creature, which is sometimes described as a bird and other times as a featherless reptilian thing. It's said that they hauled the carcass back to the nearest town and secured it by a nail or lashed it to the side of a barn with its wings outstretched. Hey, Brenda, welcome. So 6 men stood fingertip to fingertip in front of it to show the immensity of its wingspan, and the photo was taken and published in a local newspaper called the Tombstone Epitaph in 1886. Now, since then, many people have claimed to see the photo, but they shared it with somebody and they never got it back, or it got sold, or somebody saw it but they haven't seen it again since then. And so the original photo is out there floating somewhere, probably in the attic of some rich collector or something who's forgotten they have it in their collection. It's just not been seen in recent times, but many, even including paranormal investigators, claim to have seen the original photo at one point, but then it, again, somebody stole it, or they loaned it to somebody and didn't get it returned, etc. So where its current location is, nobody knows, but it was said to be a validated photo that existed. So 6 men standing fingertip to fingertip covered its wingspan. The closest people came when the story was printed by the Epitaph on April 26, 1890, was about a 16-foot bird found in the desert by some ranchers. Again, no one can find a copy of the original accompanying photograph, and over the last 100 years, people have been on the lookout for it, but it's still classified as an urban legend because the photo is unknown, or nobody knows where it is. There also remain stories among elders of some southwestern tribes of a thunderbird that resides. Hi, Lori. Exactly, Erin. Or some collector has it, and they're wealthy people or rich collectors, whatever. They're a collector who has it somewhere and doesn't want to give it up or make it public if they have it. So there are some stories among elders of some southwestern tribes of a thunderbird that resides on top of an impenetrable mountaintop mesa that has been seen attacking and carrying off a grown man and his horse. Now, allegedly, there were several witnesses to this happening, and the story has then been since passed down, but this bird kind of swooped down all screeching and stuff, and first picked off the rider and carried him up to the mesa, and then had gotten the horse, and it's thought that its nest was up there, and it was thought like it was a bank robber or a criminal of some kind, and it was looked at as like kind of karma, like it's just reward for being such a bad man. Not that karma is about punishing somebody, it's an equalizer, but they kind of looked at it like it was okay. One of your favorite, Jeepers Creepers too. Exactly. So it was looked at as like, well, they got what they deserved because they were not a nice guy, and yeah, poor horse. But no one had, because it's impenetrable by any of the locals. I mean, you'd pretty much have to use a helicopter or something else to get up to the top of this mesa. There is no way to climb it. It is like completely going vertical straight up. I've seen pictures of it in some documentary once, and this thing is massively huge. And it is like, I mean, I can see where no one can climb this thing. There are no like footholds on it. It's not that it's completely smooth, but it is, any markings or jags in the rocks are very irregular, and it does just like go straight up. So yeah, Jeepers Creepers movies are good. So the top most recent case to date still remains that of the Low case in Illinois, that tried carrying off a 10-year-old boy. But interestingly, just 5 days later after the Low incident, there was a Native American, his name is Chief H.A. Huffer, who was on the Native American Council to that area, and was a former Marine Corps photographer, so he has some credence behind him as far as being a professional photographer, right? So he's trained and so forth. Now, this is the dude who has the footage that is likened to the Patterson footage. So let's see. So he had been hearing reports of this giant raptors in the area. He took his video camera out to look for them. On July 30th of 1977, on the waters of Lake Shelbyville, he saw 2 nesting birds that were exceptionally large and managed to film a 100-foot roll of them, which is now, like I said, the equivalent to the Patterson Sasquatch footage, except for T-birds, thunderbirds. So I did watch the clip of that. It is on YouTube for anyone who is interested. What I saw was part of a bigger video, but it did show the birds taking off and flying from different angles. He is there talking in the background. I think he was kind of promoting it. I missed what tribal area this is. So so in Illinois, there was, let's see, what was the original town area that the Low case happened in? Originally there was a 10-year-old, reports of a 10-year-old boy came in. Okay, so Marlon Lowe, age 10, back in 1977, outside his family home near Kickapoo Creek, don't drink that water, in Lawndale, Illinois. So whatever tribe is in that area, now it didn't, inciting his reference, if you will, in the beginning of the video, he doesn't say what council he's on, other than he's on a Native American council and former Marine Corps photographer. And again, it's supposed to be like the cream of the crop as far as actual footage, because most sightings are eyewitness reports. There's no tangible evidence to show what they saw. So this is like the only footage of what he anyway attributed to Thunderbirds. So he, of course, received a controversial reception to it, and the Department of Conservation officials wrote it off as being turkey vultures. Now, that being said, again, I watched it, and again, we have a large population of turkey vultures in upstate New York, and out of the whole video, only one angle shown is that, did it look like turkey vultures? The rest of them did not look like any turkey vultures I've seen. Similar, but not, they were different. So what exactly he saw, I don't know. Now, could it have been turkey vultures, and maybe the other angles I saw were just unusual angles of the turkey vultures? Maybe. I don't know, because obviously I wasn't there to see it. However, what I did see of the footage does not completely resemble turkey vultures to where I could very 100% clearly say, yep, oh yeah, that's turkey vultures and he's crazy. No, I can't say that, because there was only one shot that he showed where it did look like a turkey vulture. The rest of them, like the legs flying up behind them and stuff, I've never seen that on any turkey vultures around here. There's subtle differences again. So yeah, that's very cool that you live near there. Love to pick your brain on some stories sometime. We've done a show before on Skinwalker Ranch, so I have covered that. We don't have it, unfortunately, in archive anymore, but I did cover it a while back. Okay. So yeah, I've been seeing the turkey vulture bird for the better part of 35 years in various places, not just here, but in various places I've lived. Even if I moved away and came back here, what have you, I know turkey vultures. I'm quite familiar with them. And again, only one angle shown on the video, part of it that I saw, did it look like a turkey vulture. The rest, I can't definitively say that. No, they don't let, it's actually very, very heavily guarded. They have actual security guards that patrol it with guns. There's tons of cameras everywhere there. There is barbed wire fence, electrical fencing. I mean, they're like serious about no trespassers. But who owns it now is sketchy, and it seems like it's traceable to an unknown government agency, just as an FYI or side thing in that, regarding the Skinwalker Ranch. So a few more recent sightings of alleged Thunderbirds include on September 25th of 1977, there was a 19-year-old man claiming to have seen a raptor with a 10 to 15-foot wingspan flying over Route 119 in South Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Yep. And a few other sightings also sprang up around the state around the same time, and other years as well. Now, in 2002, we're going to jump around a little bit here because, I thought it was going to be chronological order, and it wasn't presented that way in the site I used. So I started bouncing sites, so it may jump back and forth in the timeline, but you get the idea. It's different. It's still different reports. So in 2002, CNN.com reports a string of sightings in the Alaskan villages of Togiak and Manakotak. Local pilot John Boker claimed that he and his crew saw one at an estimated distance of 1,000 feet he was flying. He said that its wingspan was about 14 feet, which is huge. Officials of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services attributed this to an eagle, which can weigh upward to 20 pounds and have a wingspan of up to 8 feet. Now, that's a 5-foot difference in wingspan, which is significant when talking about a flying object. I don't think it's Mothman because they don't have a human body, but it is, in the form of a bird, Brenda. And they are said to be dark, in coloration like black or like dark gray and black, but they are a bird-like form, although some have a reptilian form to them, like pterodactyls. So Mothman, I think, is an interdimensional thing, versus these are actual birds, but, you know, they're different. So there is a 5-foot wingspan difference in the size between what the wildlife U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, they attributed it to a Russian bird, which is the Stellar sea eagle. Now, the Stellar sea eagle, again, has a smaller wingspan of up to 8 feet, and what the pilot saw was up to 14 feet. Now, could those 5 feet maybe have been a perspective thing? Well, maybe, but he was fairly close considering he was flying a plane, and he had a bird's eye view of it in the fact that he was flying versus being on the ground looking up or what have you. So, think what you will, I guess, on that one. Could go either way. Then there was also a report where 3 school teachers claimed to have seen a giant reptilian bird while carpooling to work on February 24th, 1976, while driving down a secluded road in San Antonio, Texas. One witness said it had a, quote, bony structure, like when you hold a bat by its wingtips, like it has bones at the top and in between. So, like when you know, they're talking about holding a bat open with its wings open like this, and how a wings bats, you can see the bones in it, and then they have the main bony frame, and then they have like finger claws, if you will, at the tips. Skeptics blow off. Oh, sorry, wait a second, I jumped ahead. So later in 1976, a pair of San Benito, Texas police officers, so this gives a little more credit to what they saw, or them that they saw something, and that they are police officers. So they are people of trained, you know, logical minds. So in 1976, a pair of San Benito, Texas police officers, Arturo Padilla and Homero Galwan, also reported witnessing a similar creature in the early hours one morning. Skeptics blow off both reports as an optical illusion or a weird perspective and nothing more. What say you guys in my chat regarding that? I'm going to switch my power cord over to this tablet so it doesn't get down to 0. So, in January of 2018, so just a few years ago, a woman driving spotted a giant bird with a wingspan nearly as wide as the road in Alaska, she said. May 26th in 2013 in Pennsylvania, 2 friends were walking through the woods near Bryn Athyn Castle and were startled by a bird being extremely loud. They looked up and saw a huge black bird with at least a 10-foot wingspan and maybe 4 feet tall. In Greenville, Pennsylvania, on June 13th, 2001, a resident was startled to see a grayish-black creature soaring overhead. They watched it for about 15 minutes and said its wingspan was about 15 feet with a body length of 5 feet and could clearly see its feathered body. Right? I know, exactly. Less than a month later in Erie, Pennsylvania, on July 6th, so this would be also in 2001, a witness saw a bird with an estimated wingspan of 15 to 17 feet and described it as a dark gray with little or no neck and a circle of black under its head. Its beak was about 1 foot long and was very long and thin. Pretty large. Yes, fox bats are quite large, Renee, but they don't go that big. Like their wingspan would be, I think it's something like 5 or 6 feet or something at most, but they're not 10 or 15 feet. And they're awful cute. I like bats. Bats are my friends. So even more sightings are reported still in a book by Jerome Clark titled Unexplained. He includes some of the following sightings in here. Karen. In the early 1940s, writer Robert R. Lyman saw a thunderbird sitting on the side of the road near Cooters Point. There we go. Cooters Point. Try that again. Cooters Port, Pennsylvania. Sorry. Cooters Point, which took to the sky with a 20-foot wingspan. In 1969, a Clinton County, Pennsylvania sheriff's wife reported an enormous bird over Little Pine Creek with a wingspan she estimated to be 75 feet long, which again could have been a perspective thing. Now, from what I have seen, wives of like military wives and or police wives, they are very no-nonsense women because they're not allowed to be. So they are very, like, you know, not much different than their conservative husbands are. So, you know, but again, a 75-foot long wingspan, I would say, would be a perspective thing. So we don't really know just how big it is, but this is what she swore and reported. So, remember the attempted abduction case of the 10-year-old boy, Marlon Lau, I think his name was. I found a couple of others who reported. There was one report of a 42-pound, 5-year-old girl named Svanhild Hansen, who in June of 1932 was, quote, carried away by a huge eagle from her parents' farm in Lika, Norway, and it dropped her more than a mile away unharmed on a high mountain ledge. You know, we have things happening, government knows, we're just kept in the dark. Correct. Plausible denial, Marianne. Another report from 1838 of a 5-year-old girl being snatched from the slope of the Swiss Alps where she was playing by an eagle that carried her to its nest. Now, sadly, she was found 2 months later, and her body was badly mutilated, and she was found by a shepherd. The nest was found with several eaglets surrounded by heaps of goat and sheep bones. Now, I don't know exactly what kind of eagles they have there. I got the impression that that one eagle that was mentioned a few pages back as being the possible culprit by that pilot. The Stellar Sea Eagle is kind of the biggest eagle out there. Would they be capable of picking up and carrying a 42-pound child? I don't know. I mean, if they can carry a goat and a sheep, are they taking baby goats and baby sheep versus adults? You know, that would be a question I'd have to ask. So, at any rate, they got taken, and they were attributed as possible Thunderbirds. So, some think of some Thunderbird sightings resembling the pterosaurs reports, or with reports of wingspans of 40 feet, and were thought to have died out with the dinosaurs. But many sightings do resemble them, as well as rock carvings and cave art and photos that suggest they maybe survived in small pockets in different places. Now, these resembled, quote, flying lizards, and their name means winged lizard, and it includes in the family the pterodactyl and the pterodon. A harpy is big too. I see nightmares of my future after this. Yeah, harpy eagles are big. I don't know which is bigger, but like I said, they made it sound like that was the biggest kind. The Stellar Sea Eagle was the biggest one out there, but I didn't research eagles to find out which is the biggest one, but did see that. So I did. That was what they made it sound like, or implied, that the Stellar Sea Eagle was the largest kind out there. So, but would it be capable of carrying off a 42-pound child? a mile without dropping it or injuring it. I don't know. Like, that seems extreme to me. Then in the early 1960s, out in California, a couple driving through Trinity National Forest reported seeing the silhouette of a giant bird that they estimated to have a 14-foot wingspan that they described like a pterodactyl. So again, the pterodactyls keep coming up in different reports. Now, interestingly, in Africa, they have something called Kongamoto, which translates into overwhelmer of boats. In Zambia in 1925, or Zambia, there was a Frank H. Melland who collected reports from the natives of an aggressive flying reptile they call Kongamoto, who on occasion these people were tormented by these creatures. Sandy says our local news channel showed a picture from the 80s of a pterodactyl bird in the sky in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina. Wow. Now, were they presenting it as like it was a joke or a hoax of some kind? Or like a holy crap, we don't know what this is. So they go on, these natives describe this thing as being featherless with smooth skin, having a beak full of teeth with a wingspan of just 4 to 7 feet. So much smaller than, like some people say that they think it might be, it resembles a pterosaur, but it's much smaller. No, they said they never figured out what it was. Wow. That might be something to look up and see, if there's any follow-up since then. I think anything is possible. There have been species that in fact, just recently in the news, I want to say it was a type of fish or squid or something. Something was recently found way at the bottom of the ocean up in the Arctic that was thought to be extinct, millions of years ago, but here it is still alive. They have had other things turn up fish-wise, etc., that were thought to be long extinct, and here they are still going and alive. So these things do, is it possible something could have survived? Maybe. It was a kite. At least that's what I'm going to believe. It's interesting you mentioned that, Karen, because there was, I want to say, what was the name of that show? Oh, shoot, I'm going to blank on the name of it. It has the guy, Josh is something or other, is the host of the show. And it was kind of like a cryptid show of talking about, they would go and investigate to look for any signs of people's different reports on different things around the world. But they'd done some experiment regarding kites where they took a kite, they flew it up in the air and, waited beyond the unknown. Josh Gates, yes, thank you, Sandy. And whatever the name of his show is, I know it, but it's not coming forward in my head right now. But kind of cute guy. But there was they flew this kite. Now, I don't know what, I'm guessing maybe a bird-shaped kite, but they gave people plenty of time to see it. And so it wasn't just like a quick view and then, oh my God, it's gone. What was that? But they left it flying in the sky for a while in order to get what people thought it was. And the perspectives thing of the different sizes and stuff. Expedition Unknown. That might have been in, but there was one earlier than that he was on, that he did, that dealt with cryptids. I have heard of that one, the Expedition Unknown, but I think there's an earlier one he did too, similar type of nature. But they left this kite up, and I think it was bird-shaped possibly, but they let people get a good long look at it and then estimate its size. And it was, a lot of people thought it was way bigger than what it was. It was actually just a kite but people thought it was this Gimondo thing, basing it on the size. Because again, when something is in the sky, unless you have something next to it to judge by, size is a best guess thing. And perspective, when things are further away, you're gonna not have the same perspective as when it's close up. So some of those have to be taken in that line of thinking with the size of the wingspan. But anyhow, I would think that if something was really massively huge, you would recognize, hey, this is huge and not an atypical bird. Destination Truth. Thank you, Renee. Yes, that was it. Destination Truth. But they had done like that kite experiment somewhere in there. Exactly. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman. So, yeah, they used the kite thing in that show. They mentioned it in the research. And they were talking about having done that to judge people's perspective on things. And most people thought it was this massive sized bird when it was just a kite. So, anyway, something to keep in mind with some of the sightings. So, the people who see this this Kongomoto or Kongomodo, they are saying that it most resembles a pterosaur, but is much smaller than that. So is it an offshoot of it that survived modern day that, over time through the natural selection laws of survival of the fittest, it shrank in size over time in order to fit into the changing environment, the food sources, etc. Could something like that change its size? Sure. We see that all the time with regards to like big cats. We don't have saber-toothed tigers roaming around anymore, but our modern day big cats are descended from them, and they are smaller. They're still big, but they're not that big. So they talked about it on Monsters and Mysteries and the spin-off Monsters and Mysteries in America too. Gotcha, Aaron. It's a 6-inch rule. I thought it was a 9-inch rule. You guys are funny. Exactly. There is no telling what's hidden in deep in caves. And there is an interesting report coming up that it's going to be one of those you decide things, I think. Because have small kites, right? And it didn't say if it was bird-shaped. They just said they used a kite for the experiment on perspective. So, but I think it was having to do with the possible Thunderbird sightings, because they were talking about it as if more like it was in with the research with this is being mentioned. So I would assume it would have to kind of guesstimating that it was a Thunderbird thing, possibly, or to keep in mind with these sightings of these giant birds and stuff. So, but again, could it be something that has just not been identified by science? Just because science hasn't identified it yet doesn't mean it can't exist, or it couldn't have been missed and thought extinct, but it could still exist in small pockets. So, evidence. If pterosaurs fossil evidence wasn't first found until 1784, then could a depiction of ancient carvings exist? Meaning that if the fossil evidence didn't get found until 1784, meaning it stayed buried until then, yet these things are depicted in ancient cave art, and it's said that humans came along after dinosaurs existed, then again, where would they get the imagery to copy into cave art? Obviously, it wasn't fossils. And again, even if they found a skeletal fossil, could they change that into, what a full living body would look like? Probably not. And have it be an accurate depiction based on just a skeleton? Probably not. So, hot air balloons. So that's something to think about, in as far as the idea that they're extinct. I love the movie Cave. Yes, that's a really good movie, Tanya. So, that's kind of, to me, that says a lot, as far as that the first fossil wasn't found until 1784, which is long after cave art and stuff was created, right? But the cave art still was supposed to have been created after these things had been extinct. So where did the view of them come from to be put into cave art is flying around. So in Thompson, Utah, regular size hawk is able to pick up a 3 to 4 pound dog. I would think that the hawk weighs less than a dog. Yeah, I would think so too, Lori. And that's one of the things that they maybe that they speculate on, how is that possible, because a bird, in order to fly, has to be a certain weight to be able to maintain the height to get off the ground and have the powerful enough wings to support its weight. But could a bird pick up, a regular known bird pick up a 42-pound child, which is different than a 3 to 4 pound dog? You know what I mean? I have heard stories of cats too being picked up by birds of prey out there, and be careful of your animals outside because of that. Or they've been hidden from us and thinking they longer? Exactly. That's what I mean, Marianne. If they exist in small pockets in various areas around the world, and we thought they were extinct, yet this again is talking about that, the fossils weren't first discovered until 1784, yet ancient cave art exists of them. But if humans came after the dinosaurs died out, if that's true, then where did they get their view to make the images in their artwork? In order for them to draw cave art pictures of them in caves, they had to get the image from someplace. Well, exactly. And even if, again, I saw a skeleton in rock in the ground, could I take that image of the skeleton smushed in the ground, translating it into a living, breathing being, and what it would look like? Of course not. Absolutely not. Because you wouldn't know what its outsides would look like. And to be able to translate, okay, well, maybe so it has this shape, maybe, but to get what it accurately look like when living, there's no way. Modern artists are able to recreate that through known imagery or relating it to living things to get a sense of what they probably look like. So in Thompson, Utah, a pictograph high on a cliff face shows drawings resembling a pterosaur in its beaks, wings, and legs. So this is like way high up in the cliff face. Now, granted, water levels and so forth may have been much higher back when that was made, to where it wasn't, so high up in the air at the time, or shifting whatever, growth in the rock or the ground could have changed to where it wasn't so high up at the time it was made. But not a movie, the movie Cave. It's a cave that has living creatures that were from around 5 million years ago. Oh, not the horror movie. Okay, I was going to say the horror movie, but it's good too. And does have an interesting idea behind that horror movie too, that they come in contact with something that is kind of parasitic in nature, but has existed since before time, yet looks for a living host in order to exist in, and then changes the host in order to have it be able to still exist in that form, and then moves on from there. So it is an interesting idea all the way around, either way. Now, this one is a really interesting story. I have no explanation for it other than they misjudged what they saw, maybe. I don't know. But I found it interesting. So, in 1856 in France, thank you, Tanya, for sharing the link into the group. Workmen digging through Jurassic-era limestone for a railway tunnel near Saint Dizier, which I'm probably mispronouncing because I don't speak French, and Nancy lines, split open a large boulder of limestone, and a large winged creature came tumbling out. They said it fluttered its wings, let out a croaking noise, and then fell dead at their feet. It had thick black leathery skin, a beak full of sharp teeth, long talons for feet, and membrane-like wings that spanned 10 feet 7 inches by their measure. Its body was taken to a nearby town of Gray, and a student paleontologist identified it as a pterodactyl. The rock in which it had been entombed held an exact replica of its body. Now, I have no idea how a being could survive in rock, entombed in rock, encased in rock, and then, still be alive after who knows how long. I mean, there wouldn't have been air or water or food, obviously, inside the rock for it to exist off of. So for it to come tumbling out, still being a living creature, even for a few seconds, and then also, having its body intact, I don't know how that's possible. But that was the story, and that it did get identified by a student paleontologist. Why not a full-on professor of paleontology? I don't know, or what happened to its body after that. There was nothing, no follow-up to the story beyond that. That's the only thing I found on it, but that's pretty scary. So the next one is April 25th, 1890. Now, this is like an elongated, more detailed version of the story I told at the beginning, that with the missing picture. This is more details about it, what the original, first time I heard it mentioned in the research told, so I re-included it here. So on April 25th of 1890, is it the one where people go in and there's cavemen and time is going slower, so when the 12 people no longer live on Earth? She's saying that it's an actual, non-fictional movie, I think. So April 25th of 1890, an edition of the Tombstone Epitaph ran a story of two Arizona ranchers who claims to have chased on horseback a flying monster, quote, resembling a huge alligator with an extremely elongated tail and an immense pair of wings, end quote. They shot it down, and taking measurements, it was supposed to have been 92 feet long with a 160-foot wingspan and a mouthful of sharp teeth. So this is the same one that they took back, and that was like the 6 men standing fingertip to fingertip thing, that it measured 160 feet. Now, 6 men, it made it sound like it was the same incident. However, the measurements on the wingspan is different, because 6 men standing fingertip to fingertip is not 160 feet long, but the rest of the description sounded like the same incident, and I didn't see anywhere else mention that there was more than one from that time frame. So what do we think? Now, taking into account a distance sight perspective is generally going to be skewed. Now, we have seen evidence, like we said, of creatures thought to be extinct for millions of years being suddenly found again and being like, holy cow, they're not extinct. And they're alive and well, and they look the same as they did in all the archaeological fossilized evidence of them. So which do you think what would you attribute this to? Or interdimensional being, possibly even, coming in and out of our time space? I don't know. Could be. And the research also mentioned maybe it's a form of giantism, like what humans can have, that is showing up in a specific bird that has caused its size to greatly increase. But that doesn't account for those sightings that are described like a pterodactyl. I don't know, what you guys think? Now, Aaron says, I think it came through a portal. I think interdimensional, says Karen. Because these things, again, have been cited around the world in mad ton of different people's legends and myths and oral histories and cave art and so forth. So they've been around forever. In our minds, says Marianne, we can't fathom this happening. We've been told, no, you can't survive, like the earth being flat. No, it doesn't make sense. Sandy said, I tend to think they are interdimensional. Lori says, I believe that a lot of it may be tribal. But tribal how? I mean, a lot of the legends are tribal, but a lot of the sightings have nothing to do with tribal history or lore. Or do you think that they created it in some way? So, topics for next week's Willows Bend. Karen says, since learning a lot of Skinwalker, I'm convinced they're all interdimensional. A lot of beings can be and are. A lot of those that we write off as being fairy tales or folklore or, little people beings. Yeah, a lot of those are interdimensional. Everyone's saying interdimensional. I think it was something from Native Americans. Tribal history is amazing. It is amazing, but not all these stories come from tribal history, Lori. A lot of these are like random sightings from around the world. So they're not all just related to tribal history. Lots of animals hiding that have changed over the years. Yep. Who says a species cannot survive for years? Well, it's kind of like stories of like the Loch Ness Monster, for instance, to where, they say that there's been no evidence of the Loch Ness Monster found in Loch Ness, that it would not have an adequate enough food source. But I say, what if there is some underwater passage in the caves where it can, go between the loch and the ocean and get food that way, and comes up out here in the loch and has been seen over the years. Whenever sightings of like this persist, and yes, some are written off as hoax, absolutely, and have been found and described and owned by people having perpetrated said hoaxes, because people can be stupid in their choices. But that said, I think there has to be at least something at the core root of where did these stories originally start and come from. Everything that is described as being cryptid in nature, whether you're talking about, dragons, like Willows be, the flying dragon, to unicorns, to little people, to gnomes, elves, all that stuff. Yeah. Nancy says, Native Americans were here long before us, so I think there's a lot of truth behind their beliefs. Those underwater cave systems go on for miles. Correct, they do. So I think that's something to take into consideration, that we don't know what's down there. We haven't explored most of anything underwater with the ocean, or some of the deepest jungles in the world, or otherwise. So they probably spoke with interdimensional. Yeah, it's possible. And I know I've personally, as a psychic medium, I've dealt with interdimensional beings before, more than once, and I can't tell you the names of what they are, but I dealt with them all the same, and I know what I experienced, and that's all. I don't have any proof, no, but I have my experience, and I can't explain it as being anything other than that. I had a lot of unicorns before I moved. Now they're horses, right? So, like, they all have to start somewhere, even, mermaids, all of that stuff. I believe that tribal history is nationwide. These people have left their history for us, maybe. Okay, but then, like, most of the tribal histories pertain to a bird being, versus some of these other ones are, they do look more, are described as being more like pterosaurs or pterodactyls, which is not in tribal history. We know more about space than we know about our own oceans, basically, yeah. And even that, we don't have a correct, full understanding of space according to the Seth Speaks materials. So, like, that is a thing too. But most of it remains unexplored. And there are still wild places in this world that humans haven't tread yet, or very few have or lived to tell about it. So what could be there? Well, again, if it's untread on and we haven't explored it, then how would we know? It could be too dense for us to get to, but not for them per se. Or if it's a winged creature that can fly, then it doesn't matter how dense it is, because they're going to be flying and, going down into the trees to live. So we only know what we are told, basically, and that's the same thing with these oral histories. They get passed down, but there are a lot of modern day sightings of these things. And I would say it's kind of an equal split between the giant bird forms and like dinosaur type of pterodactyl pterosaur forms. So, they're a little bit of everything, or both, I would say, like the forest in Alaska, correct. And there were sightings in Alaska. So, some of it is so unexplored and wild and unknown. Science does not have all those answers yet. So how can they empirically say none of these creatures can exist because we haven't found evidence of it, when science has not crossed those boundary lines yet to have evidence, to find that evidence, to explore it all? Ancient sites and archaeological sites are still found, and it's kind of like, how did we miss this? Or we didn't know this was here, this structure and whatever. So all that stuff keeps getting discovered along the way, and it's a steady stream of it that previously science negated, but here we are with something new. Hey, Faith. There's a place in Dinosaur National Monument that there are petroglyphs that are three-fingered hands. I think aliens did probably occupy a lot of what we think of as natural cave forms are probably actually made by them. It does, in the Seth Speaks material, it does talk about that, just as a hint of what's coming up in the book. But it's going to be a personal choice. Those people who live with a very closed mind are going to say, oh, absolutely not, it can't exist, it's all fake, it's fraud, it's hoaxes. And those who are more open-minded say, well, why not? Like, again, if science cannot empirically prove something doesn't exist, okay, Katie, thank you, then I say, why not? So, anyway, topics to vote on for next week. The next Willows Ben will be episode 126 on the 12th, which is Monday. And the topics on the table we have, and I threw a few more on because we had to 3 of them in there. Thank you, Karen. Even with my getting tongue-tied and stutter, stammer, lose a paragraph place. All right, so topics for next week. We have medieval birth control methods, tulpas, and the Knights Templar. I added a few more because those were the only 3 left on the table. Creepypasta, Stonehenge, weird things, just unexplained general weird things, or the Warrens. Yep, that was Jacob Baker resituating. So again, medieval birth control methods, tulpas, the Knights Templar, cryptids, creepypasta, Stonehenge, weird things, or the Warrens. Thank you, Lori. Well, you guys voted for it. And so while I wait for the votes to come in, for those who are listening out there, thank you very much, first of all, for listening in. And if interested, I do have a Facebook group called the Willows Bend, where I can be found in there. And it's kind of a spiritual, open-minded group. A little bit of everything in there and different topics. There's a resource library quite large in there, covering different topics as well. And I do this show in here based out of there every Monday night, but I'm with the Global Fusion Network radio network. There we go. Stumbled and stammered on that one, didn't I? Global Fusion Media Company is the correct name. Sorry. I'm trying to read comments and also going back and forth. So I can be found in either of those places. I also have my own Facebook page called Beyond the Veil, which I do readings in there frequently. I post cool stuff about recent finds in nature, the space, open, what if possible topics of interest I find that come up in the news feeds, things of that nature. So anyone is welcome to follow me there or message me on private messenger at Donna Who Walks the Land Gorton. So that said, let's grab the votes. Whoops, back. Okay, so Annette says Stonehenge. Sandy Miller says weird things. Sandy Griffin says the Warrens. Faith says the Knights Templar. Creepy Pasta says Renee. The Warrens says Tanya. Yep, Ed and Lorraine Warren, Mary. Lori says Stonehenge. Brenda says weird things. Medieval birth control in the Warrens, says Aaron. Okay. Natalie says the medieval birth control methods. Warren or Stonehenge. Yeah, there for Mary. Yes, she did pass away a couple years ago. Lorraine Warren did. Mary says the Warrens. Okay. Gotcha. Anybody else? Medieval birth control methods, tulpas, the Knights Templar, cryptids, creepypasta, Stonehenge, weird things, the Warrens, and that's it. Tanya Sargisian says Stonehenge. I did get your vote for the Warrens. Did I not say your name, Nancy? I can add you on. There's an extra one, just in case I didn't get it. Because I always say everybody's name so you know I got your vote. So if I didn't say your name, I didn't see it. Saw the story about them on Netflix. Says Renee. Cool. I didn't know there was one on there. Hi, Diane. Weird things for you. I didn't see you sneaking in here. What was your vote, Marianne? If I didn't say your name, I didn't get you, honey. That's why I say everybody's name too, so you guys know I gotcha. So let me know what your vote is, Marianne. Right now, it is the Warrens. Dad says weird things. Karen says weirdos. Oh, we got a tie going on. Marianne says weird things. Okay. So speak now or forever hold your peace. We did cover werewolves not that long ago, Annette, probably about a month ago or so, give or take. I combined werewolves with dogmen, and there was another one I threw in there. It was back when I had my hand surgery done, so I combined like 3 different shows into one, but werewolves were part of it. Sorry, but yeah, we covered it. But it should be in the Soma Fusion archive on YouTube. You can look it up. I should believe it. Yeah, because I was with you then. So, yes, story about me. Aren't we all weird in a little our own way? I have to go pick up my dog walker. Thanks for the fun. You're very welcome, Natalie. You have a blessed evening. Yep, the Rougarou. Yep, thank you, Tanya. Yep, that was the other one we covered with werewolves. Renee says the weirdos. Been married to a dog man. All right, so it looks like weirder things will win by 1. So I will cover all things weird and strange. Oh, there's Deborah. Her vote's the 1, so that ties it. Speak now or I flip a coin. Let's see, I should have my quarter over here. I always keep hidden and buried somewhere over here. Exactly, Karen. So we pick our weirdos well. Well, I'm not finding my coin that I always keep on my table because stuff's kind of clustered over there right now. But I do have my new Priscilla stone from Stonehenge. And that says Maggie votes the Warrens. And then I did get your vote on the Warrens. So we will put my Priscilla stone. It's the green man. Let me get his face up. Is that right side up? No. There he is, the green man. Priscilla stone is the same stone that Stonehenge is made from, just as an FYI, and it's harvested from that area that Stonehenge stones came from. So heads will be weird things, and tails, which is just flat on the back, will be the Warrens. Okay, that work? Heads. So that'll be weird things. Yes, it's got so much energy. Oh my gosh. Closest I'll ever come to laying my hands on Stonehenge. All right, so it was heads. So it'll be weird things for next week. You guys can always vote Warrens for next week, the following week. So let's start that so I know that's the topic. So this Wednesday, as far as next appearances go, will be the Seth Speaks book group here in Facebook in the room. And then Friday, I will be doing readings on my Beyond the Veil page on Facebook, and then can be found back in here Monday night on, you could use your shower, on Soma Fusion Radio Network. Again, through Facebook, YouTube, on every social media platform there is, we are there. And so many blessings to all of you for coming and listening in as well. And I will see you guys next week for Weird Things. Those who are in the book group, then I will talk to you guys and see you on Wednesday. How about the goat man for a topic? I can put it on the list too, Renee. We can add it. Goat man. There is a lot of missing stuff around the goat man. So love to all. Thank you guys. And I hope you all have a blessed night. And I will see everybody for the Seth Speaks book group on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. All my shows always start at 8 p.m. Eastern just because it's easier to have one set time. So blessings to everyone. Take care. Be well. And I will see you guys in here next Monday. Good night, everybody. Take care.